Hello and welcome to WION Live Broadcast. I'm Ollie Barrett in London, and these are the headlines. Ukraine's President Zelensky is to address the UN Security Council to press for tougher sanctions against Moscow over the alleged killings of civilians. Italy, Denmark and Sweden join EU allies in expelling Russian diplomats over the war in Ukraine, with more than 120 sent packing in the last 48 hours. Oil prices jump further as the European Union considers further sanctions against major crude producer Russia. EasyJet warns of more flight cancellations to and from the UK after high COVID rates in Europe leave the British airline with a lack of staff. And UN climate experts warn that humanity has less than 3 years to halt the rise of planet-warming carbon emissions and less than a decade to slash them by nearly half. The Ukrainian president is set to address the United Nations Security Council in a few hours from now. The meeting now has a focus on the weekend discovery of dead bodies on the streets of Bucha near Kiev. Today's UN session was already in the calendar before Zelensky's appearance was announced, and it will also include the participation of UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres. Zelensky has blamed Russian troops for the brutal killings of Ukrainians and says it should be recognized as genocide. Some of the bodies discovered include a group of 9 people in civilian clothing who appeared to have been shot at close range. Some of them had their hands tied behind their backs. Moscow accuses Ukraine and the West of a false attempt to blame Russian troops for atrocities in Bucha.
According to confirmed information, in the evening of April 4, in Moshchun village, some 23 kilometers northwest of Kyiv, soldiers of the 72nd Ukrainian Main Center for Psychological Operations conducted another filming of civilians allegedly killed by the violent actions of the Russian armed forces. The footage is meant for distribution via Western media outlets. The Ukrainian Special Services organized similar events in Sumy, Konotop and other cities.
As Western nations vow to take action against Russia, US President Joe Biden has reiterated his allegations about Russian President Vladimir Putin, calling him a war criminal and demanding that he face trial.
You may remember I got criticized for calling Putin a war criminal. Well, the truth of the matter, you saw what happened in Bucha. This warrants him, he is a war criminal. But we have to gather the information. We have to continue to provide Ukraine with the weapons they need to continue the fight. And we have to gather all the detail so this can be have a war crime trial. This guy is brutal. And what's happening in Bucha is outrageous. And everyone's seen it.
The United States and Britain have also announced plans to seek Russia's suspension from the United Nations Human Rights Council. The US, UK and the European Union are readying more sanctions against Russia. French President Emmanuel Macron has said that new sanctions could target Russia's oil and coal sectors. Germany, however, has warned that cutting off Russia's supply of gas to Europe completely and immediately is not yet possible, given how dependent some countries are on Moscow for energy supplies. Spanish police have seized a super yacht belonging to Russian oligarch Viktor Vekselberg. The seizure was ordered on behalf of US authorities.
This super yacht belonging to Russian oligarch Viktor Vekselberg was impounded Monday by Spanish police on behalf of U.S. authorities. Valued at more than $99 million, the 255-foot vessel was seized in a shipyard on the Mediterranean island of Majorca. Officers, including from the FBI, searched the multi-million-dollar yacht. In a video statement released by the Justice Department, U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland warned Russian oligarchs there's more to come.
Today marks our task force's first seizure of an asset belonging to a sanctioned individual with close ties to the Russian regime. It will not be the last.
The Justice Department said that the super yacht named Tango is subject to forfeiture based on violations of U.S. bank fraud, money laundering, and sanction statutes. A spokesman for Vekselberg, who heads aluminum-to-energy conglomerate Renova, had no immediate comment. Vekselberg was placed under U.S. sanctions in 2018 over alleged Russian interference in the 2016 U.S. presidential election. He was also included on a list of members of the inner circle of Russian President Vladimir Putin, targeted in retaliation for Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
The Russian invasion of Ukraine has displaced millions of people. About 4.2 million are thought to have fled the country, and many more are displaced within it. Ukraine's elderly population includes many Jewish survivors of the Nazi Holocaust. 8 decades after World War II upended their lives, many are now fleeing to Germany for safety.
At the border between Poland and Germany, Ukrainians fleeing the Russian invasion are aided by Red Cross staffers as they board buses to their next destination. The war has displaced millions, but these elderly civilians are in a special category. They are Jewish survivors of the Nazi Holocaust. And 8 decades after that war upended their lives and ended millions more, war has once again arrived on their doorstep. It is something of an historic irony that this time the German government is helping transport these Jews to safety. Olaf Hagenauer is with the German Red Cross.
They were happy to be here, and our volunteers and colleagues are happy to be back here. This is not the end of the road. The journey continues on to Berlin, and then 3 more stops where they will be handed over to be cared for.
A combined effort by Jewish humanitarian groups and the German government brought Holocaust survivors, such as 98-year-old Raisa Valyushkevich, to a Jewish elder care home in Frankfurt. She remembers the last time she had to run.
Who were we running from? Well, there was a war. The Germans were attacking and we fled. There was a front and we fled from the war. We were running from the war.
Her son, Vadim, said he would have stayed in Kiev, but for his mother.
Anyway, we had such an opportunity. We decided to go.
The operation bringing the survivors to safety is a delicate one, both because of the logistics and the trauma of the victims. Rüdiger Malo represents Germany at the Jewish Claims Conference, a body responsible for reparations to victims of the Nazi genocide.
It is clear that
the Holocaust survivors are reminded by what they are experiencing now of how and what they experienced before as children. And we, the Claims Conference, feel the deep and profound obligation not to abandon the Holocaust survivors this time as they were then over 80 years ago.
For Raisa Valyushkevich, it's another chance to arrive somewhere safe.
I have found a second home here and I feel good. I am well welcomed here. Thank you.
She never thought she would become a refugee again.
Hostomels airport in Ukraine is just one of many testimonies to the destruction in the country. The world's heaviest aircraft is there and it's been mangled beyond recognition. It's just 5 days to go till the French presidential election first round, and the race is tightening between the two frontrunners. Far-right candidate Marine Le Pen has hit her highest level yet in opinion polls. In one survey, Le Pen has 48.5% compared to Macron at 51.5% if they're put up against each other. That one is the Harris Interactive poll. In 2017, Macron won the runoff vote against Le Pen with 66%. Another poll by Opinion Way and Kea Partners also forecasts a narrowing 53-47 margin of victory for Macron in a runoff against Le Pen. Le Pen has focused her campaign on the declining purchasing power of middle and lower income voters in France. Another major issue in the country's election is pension reform. The first round vote is this coming Sunday, with a runoff on April the 24th between the top two candidates. Our correspondent Ross Cullen has sent us this report from Paris.
Touching on those latest polls which show Marine Le Pen rising in the polls, not enough to win the presidency at the current level that she's polling at, but they are high levels. They show that the gap between her and Emmanuel Macron is narrowing to within the margin of error. She now seems to be the likely candidate to break through the first round of voting and match up to Emmanuel Macron in the second round 2 weeks later. The overall picture in Europe has changed, particularly since Angela Merkel left office in Germany at the end of last year, stepping down from the chancellorship, and there is a new government, a new chancellor, Olaf Scholz, now leading the way in Germany. And Berlin and Paris are the top two capitals for the European Union, the two giants within the 27-member bloc. And France really has the consequences of the French election will be felt far and wide. It is a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council. It is not just a European nation, but has parts of the country in the Caribbean, in the Indian Ocean, in the Pacific Ocean. There are 2 million citizens of France spread across the Indian and Pacific Oceans, 7,000 soldiers, and France's largest economic zone is located in the Pacific Ocean as well. France really is one of those major countries. It's the most visited country in the world when it comes to tourism, culture, politics, the economy. It's a really important country, not just for the European Union, but for the wider world as well.
The incumbent president of Serbia has sealed a massive victory in presidential, parliamentary and municipal elections. The re-election of Alexander Vučić could have major consequences both for Serbia and the wider region. He is a right-wing populist leader with strong ties to Moscow. He's run Serbia since 2014, first as Prime Minister and then as President. On Sunday, the incumbent scored around 60% of the vote and outright secured a new mandate in the first round of the election. Vučić is likely to face pressure from European capitals to impose sanctions on Russia and to prove his country's bid is worthwhile to join the European Union. On paper, Serbia is a parliamentary republic where the Prime Minister calls the shots. In practice, Vučić is in control. No end in sight yet to the COVID-19 lockdown in China's economic hub of Shanghai. On Monday, Shanghai reported a record 13,000 new coronavirus cases. The lockdown was originally set to end today in the city's western districts, but following the surge in cases, it's been extended until further notice. Authorities are trying to snuff out the country's most severe virus outbreak since the end of the first pandemic wave in early 2020. Around 25 million people remain locked down in China's largest city and its financial centre. Official data shows China's factory activity shrinking in March to its lowest level in 2 years. Official PMI figures show activity contracted at the quickest rate since October 2021. PMIs are a key gauge of activity in the country's factories and can be seen as a more accurate reflection of China's economic situation. The Chinese government has set a target for the country's GDP to grow by 5.5% this year. Analysts say it will struggle to meet that goal. Shanghai is the world's busiest shipping port, a hub for semiconductors, electronics and car manufacturing. Given the COVID outbreak, some companies have temporarily reduced or stopped production completely. Electric car maker Tesla has cancelled resuming production at its Shanghai factory. Production there has been halted since March the 28th after the government launched its two-stage lockdown. The Walt Disney Company has also closed its Shanghai Disney Resort until further notice. Meanwhile, the Tesla founder has become Twitter's top shareholder after buying a 9.2% stake in the social media site.
Elon Musk has revealed a 9.2% stake in the social media site Twitter on Monday. A regulatory filing showed the Tesla CEO's investment, which could potentially make him the biggest shareholder in the microblogging site. Twitter shares soared 26% in pre-market trading after the filing. It comes just days after Musk tweeted he was thinking of building a new social media platform. Musk owns 73.5 million Twitter shares. It means his passive stake in the company was valued up to $2.9 billion based on Friday's close. The Tesla boss is a regular tweeter and has more than 80 million followers on the site. He's used it to make several big announcements. His tease that he could take Tesla private got him in trouble with regulators. Musk was critical of Twitter recently and said the company has undermined democracy by not sticking to free speech principles. Twitter was not immediately available for comment on the matter.
Next to the Democratic Republic of Congo, where polygamy is illegal, but it's still practiced by around 2% of the population.
Every Sunday, dozens of people gather in this church in Bukavu, in the Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo. Here, Pastor Zagabi Cheruzo preaches the virtues of polygamy. The practice is illegal in the DRC, but not uncommon. Worshippers at his congregation, which calls itself the Primitive Church of the Lord, follow another law. According to the pastor, God intended it so to avoid adultery and immorality.
Those who hunt us down, that's their business. But we must go to the end and show the people of God the truth, which is the teaching of polygamy. This means a man can marry more than one woman, although society is against it and people laugh at it.
These churchgoers believe they are blessed by God and disciples of David, Abraham and Solomon, who all had several wives. Young congregants also say they won't mind sharing their husbands.
I've been a member of the Primitive Church since I was born. I believe in polygamy as the word of God, and I believe that I can marry a polygamous man.
This is one of Pastor Zagabi's wives. Here is another. 3 of them live together under one roof. His 4th wife lives in Bujumbura in neighbouring Burundi, where her children are studying. The youngest wife is 26 years old, the oldest 48. They feel the community's disapproval.
When I was still alone at home, I had a good relationship with all the neighbours. But when my husband got married to other women, all the neighbours cut contact with me. They all ran away. Nowadays, we only greet each other out and about, but they don't visit us anymore. That's how it is.
The local Catholic priest believes differently and takes pains to say God does not condone the doctrine.
C'est une institution humaine.
Polygamy is a human institution that goes back a long way in our traditional African and Congolese culture, but it is not a divine institution.
Mais ça n'est pas une institution divine.
About 2% of the world's population lives in polygamous households, according to the US-based Pew Research Center. The figure is the same for the DRC, but rises to 11% across sub-Saharan Africa. Pastor Zagabi has 16 children. At age 60, he wants to marry again. The ideal number of wives, according to him, would be 7.
And finally to Nepal and Pauba art, the technique which is linked to strict diets and rituals of purity. It has been slowly disappearing from Nepalese culture, but one artist in Kathmandu is hoping to change that. We will leave you with that story. Thanks for watching. Do stay tuned to WION World is One.
It's a busy day in this Kathmandu household. The sound of prayer bells rings through the air. A steady stream of smoke rises from the incense sticks. Placed below are painting supplies. Tiny bottles of colours, an array of brushes, and a rustic canvas. This is how every Pauba art begins in Nepal, with blessings from God. Rituals done, UJ Bajrachaya gets down to work. His brush wanders through the canvas, leaving behind elegant lines and bright colours. This is one feature of Pauba art. The other is the strict routine behind it. You must shave your head, you must clip your nails, and you must work only on an empty stomach. Sounds more religious than artistic, doesn't it? Well, that's precisely the point.
This is not just art. The faith of Buddhists and Hindus is tied to it. If we don't preserve this art form, the faith will also slowly fade away.
3 months later, UJ is almost done. What you're looking at is the green Tara, the goddess of compassion. For UJ, this isn't about one painting. It's about the mission to revive Pauba art.
People are unaware about this tradition. I don't even know anyone following it. So I felt that we should preserve this method, and the next generation should also be aware. People should know about the spiritual aspect of these paintings. I am doing this to revive it.
What makes Pauba art special? The purity of technique. Traditionally, the canvas is made from silk or cotton. The colors are ground from minerals and plants, sometimes gold and silver. The oldest Pauba art dates back to the 13th century, but the technique is said to be much older. Today, that technique is alive and well, but the rituals behind it, not so much.
These paintings have now become a business, but their aim is not commercial. They are actually objects of respect and worship.
UJ Bajrachaya wanted to change this. He approached the Museum of Nepali Art in Kathmandu. He committed to painting the green Tara, not just using the Pauba technique, but also upholding the rituals behind it.
The colors and brushes have to be worshipped. The artist also has to stay within the rules, abstaining from meat, fish, garlic, onions, tomatoes, etc., and working on an empty stomach.
UJ is part of a dying breed. His monk-like devotion to the art, his insistence on purity rituals, his studio/prayer room ringing with Buddhist hymns. All of it represents Nepal's past, one where art and religion synced. South Asia Bureau, WION World is One.
This is right, Arab.